This morning, Graham Plattner has secured the Democratic nomination in Maine to take on Susan Collins. There are a lot of Democrats nervous that this hurts their chances to retake the Senate. He might not be the strongest candidate, that if they can't unseat Susan Collins, they'll never take back the Senate. But there might be other paths for Democrats. CNN chief data analyst Harry Enten is here. Remember, Democrats need to win a total of 4 seats and lose none. What are the polls showing right now?
Yeah, okay, so that is the mathematical equation, right? They need a net 1, 2, 3, 4 seats. That is what they need to net. And I think that there is this idea out there that if Graham Plattner doesn't win in Maine, then it screws the Democrats. That is not true at all. Yes, it may make it more difficult, but they have a real path even without winning in Maine. What are we talking about? Well, why don't we just take a look at some polling in some key states, right? Some state polling in GOP-held seats. These are states that Donald Trump won by double digits. But look at this. The Democrats in the average of polls are actually slightly ahead. Sherrod Brown in Ohio, he's up by 3 points. He's, of course, the former senator, lost his seat back in 2024. How about in Texas, which has not elected a Democrat to the United States Senate since 1988? What do we see here? We see James Tallarico. Again, a small lead, well within the margin of error, but in the average poll, he's up 3 points. So in 2 states, we have polling out in the last few weeks, last few months, when you average it all together, where you actually have Democrats ahead, again, within the margin of error, but up by 3 points in 2 states that Donald Trump won by double digits just 2 years ago.
So this would be 2 Democratic pickups. What are some other opportunities, according to the prediction markets?
Yeah, okay, so we're talking about math here, right? We need a net gain of 4. This is 1, this is 2. How do you add in the other 2? Well, why don't we look at the prediction markets, look at the Kalshi prediction markets. How about chance Democrats win Senate races in Alaska, right? The last time a Democrat won a Senate race in Alaska was back in 2008, Mark Begich. But Mary Patola, look at this, a 62% chance of winning that race, according to the Kalshi prediction market. How about in North Carolina, where I think even the most, let's just say, experts who are the hardest on the Democrats' chances think that Roy Cooper, the former governor, has a real shot of being the first Democrat to win a Senate race in North Carolina since 2008. Roy Cooper with an 86% chance. So this is 3 and this is 4 when you combine it with 1 and 2, and all of a sudden we ask the question, can Democrats get to a net gain of 4 Senate seats without Maine? Well, the answer is absolutely yes.
That's if they don't lose any of their own seats, which isn't a guarantee, by the way. There's not a guarantee, but we'll leave that aside for a moment here. Okay, so you just identified 4 races. Are there others? I mean, how many places is there, say, a puncher's chance for Democrats?
Yeah, okay, so we talked about 1, we spoke about 2, we spoke about 3, we spoke about 4. That's the net gain of 4. But if we wind out the map, right, a puncher's chance, at least a 20% chance that the Kalshi prediction markets, people putting their money where their mouth is, in terms of Democrats winning, at least a 20% chance. Look at this. There are 7 GOP-held seats. So the map is actually really wide this year. It is widened out, which is not a big surprise when the President of the United States has an approval rating, if he's lucky, averaging about 40%. If you look at most of the polls, it's under 40%. Bottom line is, map is wide. Democrats have a path without Maine. Yes, Maine helps them, but they have a clear path without it.
And it's much wider than it is today than it was 6 months ago. People like us talking about this, we're talking in a way that, oh, Democrats don't have a real shot. That shot has changed substantially.
It turns out a president south of 40% is approval widens the map for the opposition party.
All right, Harry, and thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
People are so focused on the candidates here and maybe not on the broader fundamentals, which is why you have the Republican Senate Committee saying, hey, wait a second here, be careful. Be careful getting too excited, Republicans, that Graham Plattner got the nomination.
Susan Collins always has a tough race. I mean, that has been true, for many cycles at this point. But as long as Graham Plattner is talking about Graham Plattner and not about Susan Collins, that is problematic. The NRSC is right to point out that the economy is going to be a headwind. And not to mention, Republicans have another thing that's kind of pushing against them, and that's the president. Usually this messaging is coming from the White House in normal times. We're far from normal times. So they're not only having to contend with Democrats hitting them on this, they have a president who is doing unhelpful things like like continuing this Iran war with no end in sight. So this truly, this is going to be a tough environment for Republicans, and they are acknowledging that in Maine and around the country.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, Jackie, and Jeff, you weigh in here because, again, the president's got to wage this war the way he's going to wage this war. And in theory, you want to keep political considerations away from it. But the way that it is happening right now, I don't get the sense that Republicans running for re-election are happy. And it's just day after day, and it's getting much later in the cycle. And you were out there with the president. You just don't get any signs that this is something that they are going to pivot from.
Look, I mean, wars are obviously more difficult to end than they are to begin. We've talked about that so many times over the years, but it's apt in this case right here. And of course, you want to keep the politics out of it, but it is all one a piece of the same challenge for Republicans here. Now, Democrats have enough challenges of their own. There's no doubt about it. The party is still defining itself. It's still an uphill challenge to win control of the Senate. There's no question. Even in this environment, Democrats have to perform nearly flawlessly to do that. And that is unlikely in this era. I mean, one race is likely to fall apart or something unknown will happen. But we do know one thing. The midterm elections are never friendly to the president's party, particularly with these headwinds here. And the fact that what is happening at the White House, there's much more time being spent talking about renovations and things. I was also struck by that, listening to the president as he was speaking. A lot of silence from Wisconsin farmers as he was talking about the ballroom and the other renovations he's been doing in Washington. It's not their chief priority. It may be his.
Jackie, just very quickly, Graham Plattner was out speaking this morning. Arlette played some of it earlier today. In a sense that he's talking in a way that would alleviate the concerns of Maine voters or maybe national Democrats?
We'll have to see, John. You didn't see a rousing statement from Democrats last night. Janet Mills didn't even mention him in her statement, which was very noteworthy. It did, but when you do look at the margins, he did manage to consolidate many Democrats. But as was said earlier, those independent women in Maine, those are going to be the ones that he's going to need on his side if he wants to win in November.
Jackie Kucinich, Jeff Zeleny, great to see you both this morning with so much developing news.
Last night in Maine, Graham Plattner, as you well know, won the primary to become Democrats' pick to take on Republican Senator Susan Collins this fall. Recently, Plattner has been accused by several former girlfriends of unsettling behavior, including one instance where he was described as physically intimidating. Now, this is something Plattner disputes, but I'm just wondering what you think about what he had to say last night. Let's take a listen.
Redemption is not just some simple or easy destination. It's a journey. I've made mistakes in my life, mistakes that I regret, that I live with, and that I continue to learn from. And I'm still far from perfect. But every day, I wake up and I try to be a little bit better and a little bit kinder than I was the day before.
Now that voters in Maine have selected Plattner despite those controversies, will you endorse him?
Listen, I've said as this controversy came out that the voters of Maine ought to decide. I am focused. I'm up for re-election this year myself. I'm focused on my own race. I hope the Democrats take back the Senate, and that path probably goes through Maine. But I'm focused on my own race at this point.
Do you think he'll cost Democrats a chance to retake the Senate? Mm-hmm.
I do wish this, that if Mr. Plattner feels that he could, and I've never met him, if he could disprove some of these accusations, I think that would be important. But I'm not going to go in and weigh in on race after race after race. I got to get rehired in Virginia.
All right, so I want to turn to something else.